It's day 437. It's also July 16th, 2020. And we are in Daniel, Wyoming. You ever wake up in the morning and ask yourself, what am I doing? And more importantly, why? Yeah, me too. Hi, my name's Craig, and this is my story. A story about life out there. For visuals while listening, search Life Out There on your favorite social media platform or use the links in the podcast description. We headed north on Highway 189 from Fontenelle, wandering some 70 miles through rolling fields and open plains. Miles of farmland and ranch land stretching as far as the eye could see. And then, poof, suddenly, we found ourselves rolling through a place called Daniel, Wyoming. Another tiny piece of America. And a quick stop at a little local bar and restaurant, clearly the heartbeat of a town with just 150 people. An RV park sat just above us, offering a night's stay. But by now, we know better. The real experiences out here, they aren't found next to a hookup station in a paved lot. So, onward. And just outside town, another RV park appeared off to the left. But to the right, BLM Road 5021. A dusty two-track snaking its way off the highway and into the rolling hills of Daniel. Something out there was calling our name. And a few miles in, we passed a well-used campsite tucked into a valley, mountains standing watch in every direction. A solid spot, good enough for lunch and a hike. But as the afternoon light shifted, something kept nagging at me. Just go a little further. Something better was out there. I just knew it. So, levelers up, and back out to that two-track. And a few miles later, we found it. A barely visible two-track cut its way through the high desert prairie, leading us to the edge of a bluff. And there, 100 feet below us, the Green River. Again. I wondered how many times we'd crossed that river, or how many times we'd just unknowingly followed its winding path. But in that moment, none of it mattered, because we were here. Levelers down, awning out. And for the next couple of days, we sat on that bluff, the Green River rolling beneath us, the mountains wrapped around us. And just when it all felt like it couldn't get any better, well, the horizon reminds us of who's really in charge around here. Those Grand Teton Mountains. The sight of them presses you back in your seat, demands your attention. It's gravity, not just the kind that keeps your feet on the ground, but the kind that holds you in place, forces you to absorb the sheer beauty of where you are. You don't have to be told to stare. The fact is, it's pretty impossible to look away. And the scene shifts as the day moves on. Morning cattle meander along the river, grazing. Later on, replaced by children scrambling down the gulch for an afternoon adventure. I wondered if those kids knew of a world of gaming consoles and television screens. Is this their escape from all that? Or maybe, is this their world? No made-up villains to slay, no virtual races to win. Just fishing, bug hunting, and splashing in the cool waters of the Green River. And it was during one of those afternoons, watching the children explore the riverbanks, when I'd read and learn. On July 5th, 1840, history tells us that a man named Father Pierre-Jean de Smet held what is believed to be the first Catholic Holy Mass in what is now Wyoming, more than 50 years before it even became a state. A monument still stands a mile east of town, no doubt one we'd unknowingly passed on our way out here. This land, it turns out, is considered truly holy in the world of Catholicism. And as I sat in the stillness of it all, I learned something else. A gathering once took place here, a legendary meeting known as the Rocky Mountain Rendezvous. Back when St. Louis was the edge of civilization, and everything beyond it was considered the Wild West, mountain men, Spanish and French explorers, Native Americans, they all survived on the fur trade. And they had to get their goods back to civilization, St. Louis, and beyond. But over time, trading posts formed, networks built, and then, each season, there was the Rocky Mountain Rendezvous. For a month, the wilderness transformed into a thriving hub of commerce and chaos. Mountain men, fur traders, buyers, Native Americans, they all converged in these very hills. Goods changed hands, whiskey flowed, and debauchery reigned. And let's not forget, an American-style business was born. And for several years in the 1800s, Daniel was home to one of these famed rendezvous. Looking out across these mountains, it's hard to imagine 800, even 1,000 people gathering here, camping, trading, and celebrating. Harder still to imagine when considering that the only way to get here was on foot, horseback, or maybe a wagon drawn by a couple of mules. And yet, even today, the tradition lives on. Festivals across the West recreate these historic gatherings, the most famous being the Fort Bridger Mountain Man Rendezvous, held every September in Fort Bridger, Wyoming. A town of just 300 people welcomes 250 traders, setting up camp just as they did 200 years ago. And over the course of a weekend, some 30,000 people pass through, stepping back in time for a glimpse of frontier life. But our afternoons here? No fur traders, no commerce, no Sunday Mass. Just the three of us perched on that bluff, watching the Green River carve its way through the landscape, the same way it has for hundreds of thousands of years. The only thing different today? We were here. We stayed that couple of days, but then, as always, the itch returned, and it was time to move on. And you know how sometimes you do things simply, well, because that was the plan, or you were supposed to. And sometimes you move without thought even, muscle memory maybe guiding the way. But then sometimes you do something because you feel compelled to. It's not random, but not exactly planned either. A force you can feel. It's pulling you in a specific direction. And that is how we found ourselves making a sharp right-hand turn just outside a place called Bondurant, off the highway, over a bridge, and into the Hoback River Canyon. Now, spend some time in this pristine little corner of the world, and you'll quickly realize that little is a relative term. From our night on the river to our spot in the meadow, from breakfast at an old homestead to lunch at Sleeping Indian Lookout, or tucked away in the woods on a dry creek bed. Mother Nature speaks, and if you listen, she has a lot to say. And sitting on a rock beside the Hoback River, watching the water swirl in every direction and yet move only forward, it's mesmerizing, hypnotic even. Time loses meaning, and any thought of wanting to be anywhere else, well, that just simply fades away. The vegetation moves in 1,000 shades of green, shifting gently and then jerking suddenly, and then standing still, as if frozen in a masterpiece. And the truth is, that's exactly what it is. All at the whim of the wind and a passing cloud. It's as if a masterful lighting director were orchestrating the scene, making precise adjustments at just the right time. Except, there's no lighting director here. This beauty, it just happens. Mother Nature takes direction from no one. In scooping water from the river to boil for coffee on a crisp 42-degree July morning, I didn't feel primitive. I felt whole. I felt alive. And as you sit back on that rock, cup in hand, you imagine that if there were a director, this is the moment they'd call cut and scene. Or maybe this is the part where a well-rehearsed announcer, some high-profile celebrity, steps up to the podium and declares, and the Academy Award goes to... Well, Mother Nature, of course. She takes a stage, a standing ovation all around. It really is quite the movie. Quite the production, indeed. And if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend it. It's called Wyoming. Another amazing find. Another hard place to leave. But I'm always thinking, these days, there's so much more. I just know it. We're going to take on those Grand Tetons tomorrow. And on the other side, Idaho. And I wonder what we'll learn there. Turns out, this thing called life comes with a lot of rules. Maybe it's time to break a few. Because you can. No, seriously. You can.